Alright, so now that I got one of my belay videos out of the way, and had to delay another due to current events, something beyond my control, I thought as a preamble to why I do this one, I would address my reasons why I'm not going to live action How to Train Your Dragon remake, like theatrical at least. I'm not saying I would never watch it, but it's another scenario is because of my attachments to the original trilogy, that I don't feel a need to do so. So even just skimming the reviews, even like the positive ones I'm reading, are saying that apart from being about half hour longer and a few $1 million more expensive, it's really not that different from the original movie at all. In fact, the they actually, and the biggest one for me is that they leaked the ending of one of the recent TV spots, which kind of further underscores my subject today. A Dreamworks, you need to fire whoever's in charge of marketing department, but not before giving the guy camp the toothless concession spot a raise, because this bizarre our marketing direction also affected what I'm talking about today. So here are my first reading thoughts on this year's adaptation of Dave Pilkey's Dogman. It's been roughly 8 years since Captain Underpants' first epic movie, and based on despite the fact that it managed to make its budget back, ended up being below expectations, it's also highly likely it's the last one. Though the Netflix show ended up being, in all my honest opinion, a better adaptation for me at least. And there's another out of all the other choices for making animated a film out of Pelkey's other books, this one honestly made the most sense to me now that I think about it. I was skeptical, honestly. Like a lot of people were, about how they'd be able to do it. But sure enough, director Peter Hastings, with his anime feature debut, who actually managed to make a very, very funny, entertaining, and actually many places actually pretty a heartwarming film, which none of which came across in the marketing at all. Oh, of course, I was concerned with the competition, which actually makes the fact that it actually got relatively positive reception and grossed $129 million worldwide on a relatively modest $40 million budget. It's actually a pleasant surprise. Nice. I also definitely think the whole 2.5D approach to animation also made sense. Granted, didn't quite hit the same way as the Spider-Verse films, Team Mutant Mayhem, or even DreamWorks' own Wild Robot and Puss in Boots: The Last Wish, but given the way they scaled the picture, it didn't have to. So, actually, very much in vogue of Pelkey's books, and also they kept the scale and they actually contained within an OK City. I'm not sure whether it's part of Oklahoma City that's in Oklahoma or in Missouri, but never mind. And now that it's on Peacock, I definitely can say, hey, that's a much better movie than it went on to be, and one that definitely has immense comedic talents in its cast. On top of he's himself voicing Dogman's human partner, as well as giving some animal noises for the dog. We also have the likes the of Isla Fisher, her little Valhalry, and as the villainous Petey, SNL's Pete Davidson, and they definitely gave. On top of Hastings also being one of the people who worked on the script, it's also clear they gave these comedians enough room to improv whenever they could. And I won't be getting too spoilery, personally, but more of a sense of comedy in the plot. There are actually quite a few more jokes that landed than you might expect, if I'm being completely honest. Least of all, the idea of turning, putting the buildings of the city into kaiju, and a talking maniacal fish that's voiced by Ricky Gervais as well. In many respects, the movie actually plays a kind of like a family-friendly version of RoboCop, where, and not just in terms of near-death experience that caused like a experiment that was done to save the title character's life. I mean, there's even like a very pretty moving scene where his old house ended up being sold, and his wife could no longer be a part of his life either. I mean, even if he does get a new doghouse near his old place that's bigger on the inside, all of the TARDIS, is something that carries even Lampshade. It's actually one that did get to me, mostly speaking, and even though the realtor did not bear him any ill will, he even let him retrieve his favorite tennis ball. Well, I mean, and yes, both the drama and the comedy comes from the role that animals do play, a and also the difference in the dichotomy of guides there being, even though the chief, Harry voices, does get irritated with the attention the dogman gets, he does still see him as a good officer and a valued partner, and by the end of the movie, at least much as hates to admit it, a friend. Of course, they do the usual, take him off the case. He's just as Peter's just putting his plan in motion, and but that still gives him the freedom to sniff out the plan in more than one, and especially as PD makes a clone of himself. He didn't call him Little PD, but when he finds out he doesn't want to carry on his plan of a conquest, it's like, I have no genetically cloned son, and which is also coming from how his father, and subsequently Little Peter's grandfather, was so rough on him. I seriously was not expecting like a Dogman movie to get into the concept of generational trauma. Personally, I'm not saying that it got to turning red on Kanto levels. I was like, to say nothing of everything, everywhere, all at once. But it definitely actually makes sense with story that Petey's his father being hard on him affected his relationship with all around him and his ability to see the good in his own son. And especially it becomes clear in the denouement where the only way to stop the effects of the spray he unleashed upon the whole city when he just wanted to use to resurrect a fish is to cast it into a volcano like a proverbial Mount Doom, as it were. And the setup and payoff they actually do is quite effective, up to it again, including with not only the aforementioned tennis ball, but also a lot of the businesses, is including in the cheesesteak restaurants that ends up trapping Petey in one instance. It's a fast-paced and tightly plotted 90 minutes, so whatever your stance on the movie is, it's not going to take up your whole day. Hey, I can definitely say this by experience because as I actually watched it in the background as I was reinstalling games on my PS4, or I did, however, point out, say the ending actually is a bit more nuanced than the usual having a big party of pop music that so many of these movies have where much like in the end of the Lego movie, he comes to similar realization and that you don't have to be the bad guy, and also that your past doesn't always make you who you are, or and definitely a actually a pretty solid message for this day and age, and I'll admit it, it's actually a really good film, and I definitely would appreciate if someone else got a handle on how to better sell these main these main, especially since it's caused me to actually willingly pass over films that were, or at least actually pretty decent, and at most actually end up being some of my favorite anime films of recent years. Here's mean, and thankfully, since the next Shrek isn't coming out until well next year at the earliest, there's time to maybe undo the damage caused by that initial cringy trailer of that too, especially in terms of the redesigns trying to fix something that was very much not broken. Out of the feature length adaptations of Pelkey's books, I'd actually would make the case that this is probably the best one. And, and if I may be comparatively honest, I actually liked it a lot better than in, in Captain and Pants movie, to be honest. And it's definitely he had a better handle how to work with the limitations I have against them. And I would honestly say that if you're gonna be spending this week at home like I am this is definitely one of the ones I could definitely have no objection to watching. And I also am working on my making progress on my 13 part 4 script. I'm about a third of the way done with that already. So you'll definitely see more related to that soon. First up, however, there's another divisive live action version of anime classic that I'll be talking about, though keep in mind I might not say what you think I will about it. Anyway, that's all for now, and I will see you all again soon. Take care, everyone.